Hello, brothers and sisters. Welcome to a new edition of our show titled Speak of Africa. How was Africa last week? Well, there's a whole lot of news we want to share with you. But before we begin our news segment, we want to say special thank you to all our viewers, special thank you to all our subscribers, and we also want to congratulate all our customers. Our businesses are having a whole lot of customers. In fact, we're going to start introducing you to most of our commercial customers, those who are really setting up businesses. We have a whole lot of them. In fact, before the end of March, we're going to start introducing some of these customers to you who are working on their business plans. So they're going to launch their businesses pretty soon. And we're going to ask you to support them the way we are supporting them. Because we've told you before, what distinguishes the Western world from Africa is the fact that they believe in capitalism, which is what Max Weber calls a system of private enterprise that believes in the use of the factors of production to generate unlimited amounts of profit. Technology is a new factor. As you can see, the war in Ukraine and Russia has taught us a whole lot of lessons. The value of technology. Russia was thinking they will crush Ukraine in a heartbeat. Why has it not happened? It's because Ukraine is getting a lot of help from Big Brother number one, the United States of America. Okay? So this tells you the importance of technology in a society. Before we begin our news segment, we want to introduce you to the book we're encouraging you to read this week. There's a book called The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon. In fact, I read this book for the first time back in 1979. I read the French edition. It's titled Les Damnés de la Terre, which translates to The Wretched of the Earth. Why did I choose this book? In light of the violence against Ukraine, I decided to draw attention to the use of violence in the political space. And I want to highlight the way Africans have been victims of this violence from the entire colonial to the post-colonial period. Okay? So I really want to draw attention to this, which is why I chose Frantz Fanon's book, because my thesis is very similar to Frantz Fanon's thesis. Frantz Fanon looks at the centrality of violence within the context or the prism of the African colonial experience. Some of these guys, like the colonial guys, can talk to you about theories, liberty, freedom, enlightenment. But in essence, these guys have a heart of darkness. They are very brutal. They are very brutish. In fact, when I read a book by Thomas Hobbes, I realized that the Western guys are not as civilized as they claim. They are brutes. And you can see the way Vladimir Putin is behaving today in the modern era. He's behaving like a brute. But is he the first person to behave this way? I don't think so. We have a video of Nelson Mandela talking about America's own use of violence. You remember the end of the Second World War, right? As Japan was retreating, America decided to give them a very devastating blow. America hit Nagasaki. America hit Hiroshima. After those two hits, Japan was forced to surrender in shame. And that began the era of the superiority of America in the whole world.
And if there is a country that has committed unspeakable atrocities in the world, it is the United States of America. They don't care. They don't care for human beings.
In 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed. After the collapse of the Soviet Union, they had a lot of aged leaders, so many of them in number. Andropov, Brezhnev, and many others. Then, of course, Yeltsin was ineffective. Vladimir Putin was in Germany as the Soviet Union was collapsing in 1991. So he has become an apologist for the Soviet Union. Every day he laments. But does he have what it takes? Well, he's thinking he can fight with the US. So when you look at this book, The Wretched of the Earth by Frantz Fanon, there's nothing that Vladimir Putin is doing in Ukraine that really surprises us. We see that the invasion of Ukraine has divided Africa into two parts. You have those countries that are supporting the Soviet Union or Russia, the Russian Federation. Then you have those who are supporting the United States of America. In fact, even the United Nations is split. We're looking at pictures of votes in the UN this week. And we saw that some African countries have just decided to abstain. We're not going to call their names, but we'll have the map to show you. When you look at the maps that we're going to show you on this show, you see those countries that are abstaining. They don't want to vote because they are afraid to take sides. And Cameroon is one of those. Then you have those who have decided to vote against. In fact, the only country that we noticed really voted against the United States is Eritrea. Eritrea is in the east of Africa, around the Horn of Africa. You've always heard us talk about Isaias, who is their leader. He's a big-time dictator. He has been suffering sanctions from the West for a very long time. So it doesn't really surprise us that Isaias is taking sides with Russia. So Isaias supports Russia because Russia supports him. He has been a victim of sanctions for so long. In fact, we know a lot of our clients from Eritrea who have been complaining about Isaias' rule. He imposes a lot of taxes on Eritreans who are living in the United States and other foreign countries. If you come from Eritrea, before you can enter your country, if you don't pay a lot of taxes to Isaias, he will not let you in. If you come in, they will terrorize you and terrorize your family. So he's the only one who really voted against the United States at the UN. Many other countries are just afraid. They don't know what to do. Some have already voted for the United States. So many of them. When you look at the picture and the maps we're going to show you now, the countries that voted yes are in green. There are so many of them. Then some are still undecided. Undecided, they are in black. Okay, then some have just abstained completely. So that's what is really happening when you look at the map. So violence is not something new, as the war in Ukraine and Russia shows us. In international politics, the colonial guys have always used violence to achieve their objectives. So if Putin is using violence today, it's not because he's a brute. Most of these other guys, even the United States, has used violence in the past. Mandela says it in this video very eloquently. So Frantz Fanon makes a thesis that we Africans have become the wretched of the earth. Frantz Fanon used to be a psychiatrist from Martinique, the islands, the West Indies. He wrote this book because he really participated in the decolonization struggle. So he wrote intimately. He's written a lot of books, but we really want to focus on the wretched of the earth because he makes a thesis of violence. Violence has become the prism through which we can really see the actions of most of these neo-colonial powers. They may talk about democracy, but democracy is just a slogan. They don't mean it. When it comes to Africa, they don't apply the principle of democracy. Similarly, France does the same thing. When France is dealing with French citizens, they talk about liberté, égalité. You think that, well, this is a country of Jean-Jacques Rousseau. They brought enlightenment to the modern world. But when they start dealing with Africa, France outre-mer, overseas, France, they forget about all these haughty slogans. They treat Africans like animals, and which is why Africans are perceived to be the wretched of the earth. So we're asking you to read Frantz Fanon's book because it's going to unfold to you the role of violence. Because might is right, it behooves the African who is suffering to use violence to achieve his objectives. And this is why when you look at a lot of the struggles, the liberation struggles in the motherland, the people try to use armed struggle to achieve the objectives. Some people will complain of violence, but the African mind has come to understand that without violence, they will not be able to achieve the objectives. Today, Vladimir Putin is using violence. This use of violence reminds us the way the superpowers use violence. They don't treat Africa with any respect. Africa is just a pawn in the Cold War game of world politics. So do we want to continue to be pawns? When you look at the reaction of most Africans and African leaders, especially African leaders, they are very, very calculating. They are seeing the fight between Russia and Ukraine as a superpower play. They don't want to be involved because they don't really see the benefit to them. But what we are sharing with them on the show of today is that this war is going to affect a lot of African countries, especially those countries that have started making a form of rapprochement with Russia. I give you the example of Burkina Faso. Damiba just became their leader, and as we come to the studio to tape the show of today, Damiba, who is leading Burkina Faso, has just formed a new government, and he says the transition will take 3 years. So how is this going to play out? Well, we're just watching, because we know that as much as Burkina Faso's leaders want France out, France is friendly with the United States, the leader of the free world. So how free is France going to have a reign on Africa? Will Russia be able to push France completely out, or will France stay in Africa? That's the question on the minds of a lot of Africans. And that's what we see in Burkina Faso. But before we leave Burkina Faso, we want to take you to Ambazonia. Ambazonia is in conflict since 2017, armed conflict. And when I look at the press and the media today, there have been a lot of comparisons between what is happening in Ambazonia with what is happening in Ukraine. We've looked at the comparisons, we see where there are similarities, and we see where there are differences. When we look at Ukraine, with mature eyes, we will tell you that the two situations are not really identical. Okay? They are not really identical. On the one hand, you have a situation in which Ukraine is supported by the Western powers. Unfortunately, Ambazonia doesn't have such support. And we've been telling the guys of Ambazonia that you need to have smart brains working for you so that they can show you how to win Western support. Because just like the way Tibor Nagy, the former Undersecretary of Africa for the US, said it, the Ambazonian guys need to have guys who can lobby for them. If you don't have a lobby, you are a toast for supper. Look at what is happening in Ukraine. Ukraine is resisting effectively because they have a superpower, the United States, behind them. By contrast, Ambazonia doesn't have any superpower behind. Why? Because the Ambazonian guys are not doing a good job lobbying. And this is why we need to start doing a good job lobbying the superpowers so that they can dislodge the occupying force of the Republic in their land. This week, there was a lot of news in Ambazonia. On the one hand, you have Biya's forces killing people, burning their motorcycles. You can see a video where people are crying. The Biya's forces have burned their motorcycles and they are crying and lamenting. Take a minute and watch the video.
Aladako junction right away. Maybe I have to minute choosing in a car. I'm here, Aladako.
On the other side, we told you what is happening in this region is tit for tat. The law of Hammurabi. You do this to me, I retaliate. You hit me, I hit you back. That's what is happening. Because the people are feeling the pinch of Biya's murderous attacks, they too are hitting back. The highlight of last week is the ambush in Ndian, an area called Ekondo Titi. We have a lot of resources. We've been doing a lot of investigation in this area, but we don't really have a whole lot of time. We're going to do a special segment on Ndian. Ndian is an area with a whole lot of resources, but it shows you the way the people have been marginalized. This area has a lot of resources, gas, oil, but the people do not really benefit from these resources, and they have been complaining. We have most of the guys from Ndian, the Morocco people, who send us a lot of videos and books explaining the origin of their problems, why they are against La République du Cameroun. They exploit the forests in these areas, they take their gas, they take their oil, but the local population does not benefit at all. So today, they are really resisting. And what happened? They launched an IED attack, which killed over 7 people. Interestingly, I know one of the guys who died because the guy was in school with me, Kenneth Nanji. May his soul rest in peace, because I knew him very well. He was a mayor, and he was in the SUV that was riding on that road. And you can see the pictures. The IED, they stepped on that IED, and there was an explosion. All the guys who were there died. Those who survived died later in the hospital. Later on, I can show you a video. You can see a video of Okala Bilai, the so-called colonial governor of the Southwest, going to Ndian. He was sent by his godfather, Paul Biya, to go and investigate what happened in Ndian. You don't really need to investigate. Flying all over with helicopters will not give you the solution. Watch this show and you get the solution. What happened in Ndian is simple. Ten Kobo and his boys have decided to teach La République forces a bitter lesson. They said it, they made a lot of threats, and we broadcast this threat on this show. But interestingly, most of these guys in La République are not watching this show. If you watch this show, you will know that this is what Ten Kobo was promising to do. So they are promising to even deal a bigger blow to La République. So just flying all over the place, you're not going to solve the problem. The way you solve the problem is to sue for peace. Declare a ceasefire in Ambazonia. Declare a ceasefire today. If you don't declare a ceasefire, the problem will get worse. Now, the Ambazonian Restoration Forces have decided to shift their gears. Instead of attacking just soldiers, they've realized that the Paul Biya regime does not value the life of soldiers. So they realize that the colonial administrators, who are the symbols of Biya's power, needs to be targeted, which is why they are targeting the district officer and the mayor, all of them from Biya's political party. So they realize that when they start targeting the symbols of Biya's political power, they will gain the attention of Mr. Paul Biya. And it looks like they did, because Okala Bilai and these other guys came to Ndian to really see what happened. But we're telling them that until you solve the root cause of the problem, flying in helicopters is not going to change anything. Because the people are desperate. They are ready to die because they are frustrated. If you can understand what I'm telling you, then you solve the problem. You don't need to do any investigation. I've done a lot of investigation of this problem, and I know the root causes. The people are disenfranchised. They want to benefit from their own resources. When you have all these big trucks cutting all the timber in their areas, then they don't have any roads, then they are suffering. Then you come and beat them up and kill them in cold blood. They have to retaliate. You've pushed them to the wall, so they have to act. So the militarization is not going to succeed. We've said this on this show so many times. So the solution is a ceasefire and a dialogue. If La République can do this, it's going to help a whole lot. A ceasefire and a dialogue. If they can do this, it will be great, because flying in helicopters, the way I see Okala Bilai flying in a helicopter saying he's going to Ndian to investigate, is just a waste of time. So this is what happens. It looks like FM 10 Kobo and the Ayabachos of the world, they are beginning to understand that violence is the key. The colonial master only understands one language, violence. He uses violence. So if you don't use violence, he will not get your message. So the guys have understood now that to gain the attention of their colonial master, they have to resort to violence. And they are using it to great effect, and we really feel sorry for those who are losing their lives.
That waka on the waka, so I be away for all na waka them. One the waka the tonton go this side, go that side. But what we then as bro, you say statement say this 222. Now for finish, I know na say every day.
Yes, Masha.
If the one that they be see, I'm listen and see what will be happen. Now money this what I take from them. Money that I move out for pocket them. So, ma tell you, that's what I say for do na carry and say on the job, na do na do na do. Una be very careful. Una be very careful. As I tell you now. So, some place they want give some notice and some warning. May not be said, no be tell some man. May not be said, no be tell some man. Any man way they. So, as I be talk, ma tell you now again and again. The people them, when I know, say when I don't grant this military, then so the military gets how they divert the anger now for the civilian. They tell big man say make come up for under sun. Any man wey no say be civilian, I think that happen. So when I found a place, when I go hide in a head. When I leave her for me and the military, then I so don't talk.
Yes, Masha.
But when will the stubborn Paul Biya regime get it in their thick head that violence is going to solve the problem? Already, the people are preparing for the end of the Biya era. That's what is really happening in La République du Cameroun. They are preparing for the end of the Biya era, and it looks like you have Ferdinand Gongo, Frank Biya, Chantal, they are in the mix. But it's just going to create a big clan warfare in La République du Cameroun. That's what your average Cameroonian is waiting for. They know there's going to be a bloodbath because as they see it, Mr. Biya may exit the stage in less than a year from now. And when this happens, a lot of other players are just waiting in the wings to join the fight. But they want to make sure that the Betis beat themselves, kill themselves, then they will come in now to take over the spoils of the war. That's the way we see it.
Hey, yo, Shay, I thought you was going to take me to this place so I could get my taxes done. You know I'm trying to buy a new house. What's up?
Let's get it on. If you're searching for a house, call up my man Prince Ojong, the best in real estate. Take it from your guy's shape. When I say his services are the best in the states where it's born, he even take care of your tax forms, back refunds. So come, get your business done. Consultations, financial organization, fast processing, no waiting. This man is amazing. The Prince.
Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131.
Next, we take you to Nigeria. In Nigeria, the main story, Mr. Buhari donated, I think, over $1 million to Afghanistan, a Muslim country. When there are a lot of Nigerians suffering of poverty, they can't have food to eat. Why is Mr. Buhari showing such largesse to a Muslim country when Nigerians, his own people, are there hungry? That's the message you send to us, and you ask us to ask these questions on this channel. We're asking the question for you, our people. Nigerians are suffering. Food is expensive. They don't have money to spend. But Mr. Buhari is using money from the government's coffers to feed people in Afghanistan just because they are Muslims. So he wants to make a good impression with his fellow Muslims. We do not have anything against Muslims. We don't hold any grudges against Muslims. Many of our friends are Muslims. But the question we are asking on this show is, why can Mr. Buhari not help the poor Muslims in Nigeria? Why must he help only Muslims in Afghanistan? What's so special about Muslims in Afghanistan? Are the Muslims in Nigeria not Muslims? So those are the questions you ask us to ask Mr. Buhari to address. But you can see the other story which we're going to highlight on this show today is the maltreatment of Africans in Ukraine. As much as you want Africans to take sides in this conflict, America has been exerting a lot of pressure on African countries to join the fight. But you can see that a lot of African countries are not joining the fight. They're sitting on their sidelines. Look at the Central African Republic. The guys are staging a rally supporting Vladimir Putin. They feel like Vladimir Putin has never really invaded an African country. But I think this is a very simplistic analysis. When you look at the wealth that Vladimir Putin has collected, a lot of gold in Sudan, for example, much of this gold comes from Africa. Starting with Omar Bashir, then Hemti, the new leader in Sudan. They gave a whole lot of gold to Vladimir Putin in exchange for military protection. So you see how stupid Africans are. They take all their resources and give to foreigners, then they are left empty-handed. It's just like the earthworm. He took his eyes and gave to the elephant, and now the earthworm is blind. This is just the way your average African lives. So it's very, very sad when you look at what is happening. So Vladimir Putin was bold enough to challenge the West because he feels he has amassed so much gold from Sudan, a lot of shady deals. They use the Wagner Group to make a lot of these shady deals. So they've taken a lot of this gold and they are enjoying it to the detriment of a lot of Africans. Why now these people are in the street protesting every day? They are poor. They don't have anything. But Vladimir Putin is enjoying these resources. So as much as the West is waging a war against him, a war that he declared unprovoked, now the people are asking themselves, how is this going to end? We are more interested in the plight of Africans in Ukraine. We don't really care about the two sides because Ukraine is not even treating Africans well. So we are not even in favor of Ukraine. We feel bad about what is happening to them, but the way they are treating Africans, it makes Africans not to support them in this fight. If they really want support from Africans, they've already messed up things because they have been showing that they are racist. By contrast, Romania has been welcoming Africans. So you can see that the Romanians are treating Africans better than the Ukrainians.
So we the blacks in Ukraine have finally entered Romania and we are in the train station right now to board a train to the capital to board a flight to Ghana and then others going to Nigeria, Zimbabwe. So this is where we are right now. These are the Africans. We are all safe. Romania has been so good to us. They've accommodated us, gave us food and everything. We've not spent even $1 in Romania because they've taken care of us, everything. So yes, please say thank you to Romania.
So which is what we want you to see. There are a lot of videos we have which we can share with you showing the way Africans are talking about their mistreatment in Ukraine.
I was begging. The official literally looked me in my eye and said in his language, only Ukrainians, that's all. That if you are black, you should walk. I'm currently in Debrecen, Hungary. I got in like 10 a.m. today. Today is the 28th of February. It wasn't easy.
But by contrast, Romania is allowing them to board the buses and trains to get out. So Ukraine needs to know how to placate Africans because they are not treating Africans well. So this is going to continue to be a problem. So we think we've come to the end of our show, but we're going to show you that we'll end this show by focusing on the fact that there is an interplay in this Cold War. The Africans are a pawn in the Cold War games of America and Russia. But should we be a pawn? No, we should not be a pawn. So we should play the game strategically. We should play the two sides the way we're doing it during the early Cold War, Cold War I. Now we're having Cold War II. But will this lead to a world war? Well, Europe always creates all the world wars. So let's see if we're going to see another third world war. We've told you that we've come to the end of our show. Bye-bye. May God bless you.
Medical practice software is too old. Indeed, all the programs are built on MUMPS, technology of the 1950s, and the programs cost too much money. Epic and Cerner cost billions of dollars. Meditech costs thousands of dollars too. In fact, that's why we created AlexiaHTC.com, a new and free EMR/EHR for doctors. AlexiaHTC.com is built for HIPAA. Yes, magical one-screen technology, ease of use, quick charting, amazing e-prescribing, tight labs integration, multi-office difference, because we believe doctors and patients need a break today. Be the first to test drive AlexiaHTC.com. You have nothing to lose, you have everything to gain. Act now. Call 240-350-1131. Alexia Care Corporation at alexiahtc.com. Selling a service or a product? Need buyers? Use the African Nation TV as a channel to reach many viewers. Act now and call Prince Ojong at 240-350-1131. That's 240-350-1131. Act today.